Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarks on a historic state visit to the United States of America. Apart from high-level dialogue with the US President and other meetings, Prime Minister will lead the 9th International Day of Yoga celebrations with people from over 180 nations at the UN headquarters. 4th Education Working Group meeting begins in Pune. 85 delegates from G20 member countries, guest countries and organizations as OECD, UNESCO and UNICEF to participate in the event. International donors pledge almost $1.5 billion in additional aid for conflict-stricken Sudan as the United Nations warns that the African country's humanitarian crisis is worsening. UN urges international donors to help tackle death and destruction in Sudan. British MPs vote to approve a report that found Boris Johnson deliberately misled the MPs over lockdown parties in Downing Street. Report recommends Johnson should be denied a pass, giving him automatic access to Parliament. Uganda police arrest at least 20 people suspected of collaborating in the last week's massacre by Allied Democratic Forces. 41 people, including 37 students, killed in the attack. Assailants reportedly fled to Democratic Republic of Congo. United Nations adopts world's first international treaty to protect the high seas after more than 15 years of discussions. Legally binding accord outlines rules to protect biodiversity in waters outside national boundaries. Search teams from US and Canada race against time to find a tourist submarine that went missing while taking tourists to explore the wreckage of Titanic. British billionaire Hamish Harding among the passengers. In sports, a very exciting chase awaits fans in the first Ashes 2023 as England gets wrapped up on 273, sets Australia a target of 280 runs on board. Hello, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of the news. We first get you updates on Prime Minister's forthcoming state visit to the United States of America. Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarked on a state visit to the United States of America this morning at the invitation of President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden. The visit is significant since it is Prime Minister Modi's first official state visit to the US and is therefore set to mark an important chapter in India-US ties. Prime Minister Modi will meet US President Joe Biden in Washington to continue their high-level dialogue. The Prime Minister will receive a ceremonial welcome at White House on Thursday. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden will also host him at a historic state dinner at the White House. Prime Minister Modi left for the US on his first ever state visit today. In his pre-departure statement, Prime Minister said, and I quote him, "I am traveling to the United States of America on a state visit at the invitation of President Joseph Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. This special invitation is a reflection of the vigor and vitality of the partnership between our democracies." The Prime Minister said that he will commence his visit in New York, where he will celebrate the International Day of Yoga on June 21st at the United Nations headquarters with the UN leadership and members of the international community. He added, and I quote him, "I look forward to this special celebration at the very location that supported India's proposal in December 2014 to recognize an International Day of Yoga." Prime Minister Modi will thereafter travel to Washington, D.C. President Biden and I have had the opportunity to meet several times since my last official visit to the U.S. in September 2021. This visit will be an opportunity to enrich the depth and diversity of our partnership. Prime Minister Modi in his statement said, India-US ties are multifaceted with deepening engagements across sectors. US is India's largest trade partner in goods and services. We collaborate closely in science and technology, education, health, defense and security fields. The initiative on critical and emerging technologies has added new dimensions and widened collaboration to defense, industrial cooperation, space, telecom, quantum, artificial intelligence and biotech sectors. Our two countries are also collaborating to further our shared vision of a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. He said, my discussions with President Biden and other senior US leaders will provide an opportunity to consolidate our bilateral cooperation as well as in plurilateral forums such as G20, Quad and IPEF. I will also have the pleasure of joining President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden for the state banquet along with a number of dignitaries. During his visit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address a joint session of the US Congress at the invitation of congressional leadership. Prime Minister Modi also said that he looks forward to meeting the vibrant Indian-American community that represents the best of our societies. He will also meet some of the leading CEOs to discuss opportunities for elevating trade and investment relationship between the two nations and for building resilient global supply chains. Prime Minister Modi expressed confidence that his visit to the US will reinforce India-US ties based on shared values of democracy, diversity and freedom. He said, together we stand stronger in meeting the shared global challenges. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Wall Street Journal and highlighted how the India and Washington relations are better than ever and stronger than ever. In fact, Prime Minister Modi also said that he sees unprecedented trust with the US, touts New Delhi's leadership role further. In Wall Street Journal interview, Prime Minister called for deeper ties and overhaul of global institutions. The Prime Minister highlighted, and I quote, India deserves a much higher, deeper and wider profile and a role. We do not see India as supplanting any country. In fact, we see this process as India gaining its rightful position in the world. The world today is more interconnected and interdependent than ever before. To create resilience, there should be more diversification in supply chains. For normal bilateral ties with China, peace and tranquility in the border areas is essential. Up your screens, we have the details of the interview. As we told you, the Prime Minister vouched for India deserving a much higher, deeper and wider profile and a role. He also in fact said that we do not see India as supplanting any other country. Ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit, Jake Sullivan, President Joe Biden's national security advisor, told in an interview that India fits into it in three fundamental ways in new Washington consensus. First, when it comes to supply chains, what we are looking for is not to close America off to the world, but do exactly the opposite. We are looking to connect to the rest of the world through diversified, resilient supply chains and growing India's manufacturing capacity to contribute to those supply chains in things like semiconductors is fundamentally part of the vision that I laid out. Second, when it comes to emerging technologies, US and India are collaborating together to create this shared technology ecosystem of trust. That's investments in India's technology base. It is joint research and development. It is co-production in the defense technology space in a number of ways. A deeper partnership on technology between the US and India lies at the heart of Biden administration's international economic vision. We share a common interest in seeing the evolution of multilateral development banks, that is MDBs, and the international financial institutions so that we can mobilize more capital to solve the challenges of the developing world. As the G20 chair, India is playing a leadership role in this effort, and the US is coming to the table with ideas and resources to help make this happen. So we are looking to help make India's G20 presidency a landmark G20 presidency on both of these issues. Deepening defense ties will be a key objective when India's Prime Minister visits the US. Washington is looking to steer India away from its ties with Russia, while New Delhi will seek access to new technologies as it looks to modernize the military capabilities. US correspondent William Densler reports.
The expectation ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit is that several major defence deals will be pushed closer to completion. India is seeking a major delivery of Sea Guardian drones in a deal that could reportedly be worth up to $3 billion. Modi's team is also hoping to get a green light for General Electric to start producing engines for India's fleet of domestically made fighter jets. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says Washington is also set to remove obstacles in an effort to foster deeper ties in sectors like technology and defence.
It makes sense to improve our ties, trading relations with India, and that's what's happening. I think India is growing, and US already sees the benefit of getting closer. They got a huge, one of the biggest orders for Boeing aircrafts from India a while back. Now they're talking about drones and the jet engines.
But the two nations certainly aren't in total lockstep when it comes to defence. India is Russia's largest buyer of weapons, spending an estimated $13 billion over the past 5 years, according to Russian news reports. The Biden administration will certainly be hoping to persuade India to start pivoting away from Moscow during Modi's state visit to Washington. A shared concern over China's growing influence is seen as strong motivation for the US and India to deepen defence cooperation. Beijing's role in the world will be a central topic when India and the US leaders meet later this week. William Denslow in New York, reporting for DD India.
As Prime Minister Modi has departed for the United States of America, President of the UN General Assembly has hailed India as an emerging superpower and listed out the basic expectations from India. Let's listen in.
In terms of science, in terms of technology, India is on a very, very rapid rise. So we are talking about a potential superpower of the near future. And as a potential superpower, a big power in the world, obviously the big powers have big responsibilities. Where this world goes, what will happen to us, what will be the basic rules of the future, how are we going to develop our economies to make sure that the possibilities available today for all nations would remain for the next generations as well. These are the basic expectations from India.
US Congressman Matt Cartwright delivered a heartfelt message welcoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the eve of his historic state visit. Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted the message, thanking him for his greetings.
Hello, I'm United States Congressman Matt Cartwright from northeastern Pennsylvania. And I want to take this opportunity to say how delighted I am that we are receiving an historic visit to the United States by the Indian Prime Minister, the Honorable Mr. Narendra Modi. What a momentous special occasion this is, and we welcome him to the United States. We eagerly look forward to him being hosted by the United States President Joe Biden at the White House on June 22nd, 2023.
Georgia State Representative Lauren McDonald extended his warm wishes on Prime Minister Modi's visit. He said that the relationship with the Indian community is growing.
Hello, my name is Lauren McDonald III. I was Georgia State Representative from District 26 in Cumming, Georgia, Forsyth County. I just want to welcome Prime Minister Modi to Washington, D.C. as he travels in from India to meet with members of Congress. We really appreciate the relationship that his community community and the Indian community in Forsyth County is growing, and the relationships we've built with them. To ask them with my boys Wiley and Ridley in Washington, D.C., the place where Prime Minister is coming on the 22nd of June. So I just want to welcome him to the United States of America, and anytime he's also welcome to come to Georgia, to Atlanta. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Professor Santanu Bora of Alabama extended his greetings on Prime Minister's visit. He said that we are expecting a lot of good things to come out from the meeting of the two great leaders.
We are very excited about this visit between the two leaders of the world's largest democracies. We expect a lot of good things to come out from the meeting of the two great leaders. We hope that you are as excited as I am about this trip. Prime Minister Modi has done some phenomenal things over there in India, and I hope that when the leaders do sit down and talk, we expect some positive things that will put the world in the right direction.
FedEx President and CEO Raj Subramaniam gave a welcome message to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his state visit to the US. He praised Prime Minister Modi's commitment between India and the US in terms of economic development.
Prime Minister Modi ji, it is my honor and absolute pleasure to welcome you to the United States. Your visit underscores the importance our two governments place on the bilateral relationship between the US and India. This commitment between our countries offers significant opportunities to deepen commercial ties and strengthen economies. At FedEx, we connect businesses and consumers in both India and the US with economies across the globe every single day. And we stand ready to do our part to advance economic integration of the world's two largest democracies. Thank you very much, and we look forward to your visit.
With Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarking on his first state visit to the US, a number of American politicians, prominent citizens are looking forward to according a grand welcome to the Prime Minister. Hindi Sanskrit scholar Dr. Elliot Makata extended greetings for Prime Minister Modi in Hindi. Let's listen in.
दुनिया के सबसे बड़े प्रजातंत्र भारत के प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी का अमेरिका में आना एक महत्वपूर्ण घटना है। हम उनका हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं। मैं गर्व से कहता हूं कि ये देश मेरा घर है और भारतीय मूल के लाखों लोगों का भी। पिछले कई वर्षों में भारतीय मूल के लोगों ने अमेरिका राष्ट्र का योगदान दिया। वो लोग काफी तरक्की करके इस देश का महत्वपूर्ण हिस्सा बन गए हैं। प्रधानमंत्री श्री मोदी जी के स्वागत के लिए अमेरिका में जिस तरह की तैयारी की जा रही है, वो विश्व में भारत के बढ़ते हुए प्रभाव का प्रमाण है। श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का हिंदी के प्रति प्रेम सबको मालूम है। मैं यहाँ अमेरिका में हिंदी शिक्षक के रूप में ये आशा करता हूँ कि उनके सहयोग से अमेरिका में हिंदी शिक्षण की संभावनाएं बढ़ेंगी और भाषा के माध्यम से आपस में सांस्कृतिक संबंध भी नया मोड़ लेंगे। दोनों देशों में आपसी सहयोग हमें एक दूसरे को समझने का बेहतर अवसर, अधिक स्वतंत्रता और नई प्रेरणाएं देगा, जो पूरे मानव समुदाय के लिए लाभकारी सिद्ध होगा।
The Gujarati Samaj of Houston welcomed Prime Minister Narendra Modi with a special dance performance. Take a look.
स्वागतं शुभ स्वागतं अथ स्वागतं शुभ स्वागतं आनंद मंगल मंगलम् आनंद मंगल मंगलम् नित प्रियं भारतं 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 नित प्रियं भारतं भारतं स्वागतं शुभ स्वागतं अथ स्वागतं शुभ स्वागतम्
અમેરિકામાં સ્વાગત કરીએ છીએ।
And children and adults of Dawoodi Bora communities from the Houston and Collin County extended their greetings on Prime Minister's state visit to the U.S. The community felt honored to be part of this historic occasion, reflecting on their commitment to fostering harmony between their beloved home, the United States, and their cherished Indian roots.
Howdy, Modi ji. Came true. Welcome to the United States of America.
We are the children of the Dawoodi Bora community of Collin County, Texas, and we wish you the very best on your trip to America.
While we are Americans, we visit India often, as India is the land of our ancestors. And though we may be born here, हमारे दिल में India बसता है.
Modi ji, आओ जल्दी मिल सो. Jai Hind, and may the United States of America be blessed.
I am honored to address such a distinguished guest. Padharo Padharo Shri Narendra Modi ji.
Ahlan wa sahlan, Honorable Prime Minister to America and Washington.
Marhaba, marhaba, Mr. Prime Minister to United States of America.
And people from the Indian diaspora celebrated outside the White House in the United States ahead of Prime Minister Modi's state visit. After Prime Minister Narendra Modi's call for millets, an Indian restaurant named Sar at Times Square added millets-based dishes to its menu, recognizing the importance of millets and creating a domestic and global demand, along with providing nutritious food to the people at the behest of the Government of India. The United Nations declared 2023 as the Year of International Millets. Hemant Mathur, the owner of the restaurant, said that the response has been very encouraging and millets are also very healthy. Ahead of the historic and substantive state visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the US, the Indian Embassy in the US took to Twitter to share quick glimpses of expanding ties and deepening partnership between India and the US. Let's take a look. All right, so that was about Prime Minister's visit to the US, and now we turn focus to get you some stories in the run-up to the International Day of Yoga. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin his official state visit to the United States by leading the 9th International Day of Yoga celebrations on June 21st. The 9th International Day of Yoga will be observed in a grand manner at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Eminent personalities from over 180 countries, including diplomats, academicians and entrepreneurs, will attend the International Day of Yoga celebrations. Reporting from ground from New York City's Times Square, our correspondent Sakal Bhatt elaborated upon Prime Minister Modi's visit, coinciding with the International Day of Yoga and its star-studded lineup. She spoke to Grammy-winning artist Ricky Cage. Let's listen in.
Well, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi takes center stage in the 9th edition of the International Yoga Day, which is going to be celebrated from the United Nations headquarters, North Lawns. 180 plus countries are going to participate. Nevertheless, the delegates, students from all over the world, we have been told, plus star-studded lineup. Well, talking about the star-studded lineup, our very own Ricky Cage, we bump into Ricky Cage here at the iconic Times Square, and we have been told that Ricky is also, in fact, going to be part of the IYD 21st very special morning performing yoga. You're also one of the invitees, Ricky. Welcome to Doordarshan from New York.
Always wonderful to speak to you, Sakal, and to Doordarshan.
Yes.
So I'm going to be there at the World Yoga Day celebrations this year. Of course, the United Nations celebrates World Yoga Day every year since Prime Minister Modi had ensured that there is a World Yoga Day recognized by the United Nations many years ago. But this year is going to be extra special because Prime Minister Modi himself is going to be leading the World Yoga Day this year. So I'm super excited to be there and to participate.
Can you share some insights with the viewers of Doordarshan? You've been here for some time now in New York.
No, of course, it's the energy is very, very high among the Indian diaspora. Everybody is talking about this event, not just the Indian diaspora, but everybody is talking about this world leader is going to be here. In fact, I was at the United Nations headquarters yesterday and the day before yesterday, and everybody seems to be talking about this huge event. Everybody seems to be talking about this huge event which is happening over there, about yoga, and everybody wants to attend.
This kind of reiterates India's soft power reaching the pinnacle, because you would agree this is unprecedented. Never in the history of United Nations something like this, an event of this magnitude and expanse has taken place, and here India is in the focus.
Absolutely, because there are going to be so many people on the North Lawns of the United Nations, and being a goodwill ambassador with the United Nations, I constantly keep going to the headquarters, and it's the first time I'm seeing an event of this kind of magnitude and this much of hysteria happening at that particular venue. So it's very exciting.
Well, Ricky, आपसे ये भी जानना चाहेंगे, what is it about yoga that has actually clicked so much with the West?
See, the thing is that when it comes to healthcare, in my opinion, my personal opinion, when it comes to healthcare all over the world, it's all about that if you have a problem, then you have to solve it. That's what it is. It's all about treatment after there is a problem. Whereas yoga is all about complete wellness, right from the start, so that the problem itself does not arise. And that is why yoga has become such an important soft power of India all over the world, and not just a soft power, but an essential need for the world right now. We've got so much of mental health problems, we've got so much of physical health problems and all of that stuff, the pandemic, all of these things I believe can be mitigated, can become much lesser in nature if yoga becomes an integral part of everybody's lives everywhere in the world, and that is why this World Yoga Day becomes absolutely essential.
Finally, Ricky Cage, from the heart of New York City, from this epicenter and iconic Times Square, what is your message?
I think my message to every Indian out there is try to figure out what can you do within your own daily lives to make a difference and to make a difference in this world. Now, it's not important for you to change the world, as I mentioned. It's important for you to just figure out the small, tiny things that you can do within your own life. And of course, I think India is becoming a superpower. It's said to be the third emerging superpower in the world. And and I believe that all of us need to support our government as much as possible to ensure that we go from strength to strength. We are already known as the leader of the global south. I think we need to be known as the leader of the world.
So the fact that it's going to be the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading the 9th edition of International Yoga Day from North Lawns of United Nations headquarters, जो सबसे बड़ा message जाता है, the big message that goes that this is the story of India's ascent, and that is a very, very uplifting story. Ricky Cage, thank you very much for talking to TT India from Times Square. Thank you. With camera person Rahul Sakalbhat reporting for Doordarshan TT India from iconic Times Square, New York.
Indian Ambassador Reenat Sandhu shared the video of yoga celebrations in The Hague. Take a look.
Good morning to everyone. I warmly welcome you all to the 9th International Day of Yoga in The Hague. It is great to see such a large gathering on a Sunday morning. Thank you all for joining us.
In a pioneer initiative, the Indian Embassy in the Sultanate of Oman has introduced an innovative video called Soulful Yoga, Serene Oman, on the eve of International Day of Yoga. Now, this video shows people from different parts of the world performing beautiful yoga poses against stunning backdrops such as mountains, beaches and sand dunes in and around Muscat. Take a look. Annalise Richmond, a yoga teacher from New York, has shared her views on the visit of Indian Prime Minister to the US. She spoke about how dearly she holds India. She also spoke about her practice of pranayam and meditation. Let's listen in.
Namaste, India. You know, India holds a really dear place in my heart because I did all of my yoga, pranayama, and meditation training in India through India with Gurudev, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, and the Art of Living. I did it 23 years ago. And I am very grateful to India, the country that has spread the knowledge of yoga, meditation, and pranayama all over the world. So it is a great honor for me to be leading yoga, pranayama, meditation for PM Modi, who has helped spread this knowledge around the world.
All right, we'll change track now. That was about the celebration of the International Day of Yoga on 21st of June. We'll now get you more details on G20 Presidency of India. The 4th Education Working Group meeting began in Pune. The event will witness the participation of 85 delegates from G20 member countries, guest countries, and also international organizations such as OECD, UNESCO, and UNICEF. Indigo, India's largest airline, has placed a firm order of 500 A320 family aircraft, setting the record for the single biggest purchase agreement in the history of commercial aviation. The latest agreement takes the total number of Airbus aircraft on order by Indigo to 1,330, establishing its position as the world's biggest A320 family customer. Indigo and Airbus made history at the Paris Air Show with a deal of 500 A320 Neo aircraft. Now, it is the biggest single purchase agreement in the history of commercial aviation. This historic purchase agreement was signed by Peter Elber, CEO of Indigo, and also Guillaume Faury, Airbus CEO, and Kristen Scherer, Airbus Chief Commercial Officer and Head of International at the Paris Air Show this year. Indigo order book is now of almost 1,000 aircraft and stretches well into the next decade. Airbus calls it a landmark order which marks a new chapter in Airbus and Indigo's relationship that is democratizing the affordable air travel for millions of people in the world's fastest growing aviation market. Indigo is amongst the fastest growing low-cost carriers in the world with its fleet of over 300 aircraft. The airline is operating well over 1,800 daily flights and connecting 78 domestic destinations. In today's world of video calls, instant messaging and mobile phones, Odisha police are preserving a relic from the past, that is the carrier pigeons. More than 100 Belgian homing pigeons are being reared and trained to carry messages in Cuttack. With origins in British colonial era, the pigeons used to carry messages between police stations in remote regions and help to keep in touch with police units on the move. Messages are written on very light onion paper and inserted into a copper or plastic capsule, then tied to the pigeon's leg before they are released. There are 106 such pigeons at the center in Cuttack and around 50 at the Police Training College in Angul, Central Odisha. Nowadays, birds only make an appearance during events such as India's Independence Day and Republic Day. The birds proved to be a communication lifeline during the 1999 Odisha cyclone. A quick break ahead. Stay with us.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India. Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in Central Asian countries. STTV broadcast.
Welcome back after the break, and from here we take you to the live press conference by Minister of Civil Aviation, Jyotiraditya Scindia. Let's listen in.
A recorded order by a carrier with any aircraft manufacturer in the world. What is also important to understand is the multiplier effects of civil aviation and the direct and indirect economic multiplier effects. Every dollar invested in civil aviation yields $3.1 in terms of new growth, as well as the employment multiplier. Every direct job in civil aviation results in 6.1 indirect jobs in the sector. And therefore there are tremendous dividends that accrue from a ever expanding civil aviation sector. As I have mentioned many times before, not only is the airline sector growing from a fleet size of 400 in 2014, we have witnessed a 75% growth to a fleet size of 700. We have witnessed the birth of many countrywide carriers like Akasa, regional carriers like India One Air, Star Air, and many others. But also, you have witnessed orders being placed by India's foremost carriers, which are greater than the size of India's total fleet in 2013-14. A fleet size of 400 in 2022-23 has been eclipsed by a single order of 470 aircraft by Air India and now a 500 plane order by Indigo. I must also underline here that we are, whilst we look at an expanding fleet of civil aviation, 400 to 700 to hopefully close to 2,000 aircraft over the next 7 to 10 years, we're also looking at expanding our infrastructure footprint from 74 airports to 148 airports, waterdromes and heliports, growth in our 6 metros from 221 million throughput capacity on an annual basis to almost 420 million throughput capacity by the year 2030. And we're also looking at now creating, with this expanding footprint, creating an international civil aviation hub within India. For far too long, our hubs have been located outside our eastern border or outside our western border. And we're working at creating Delhi as the first hub. And I think that with the expansion of infrastructure, with the expansion of fleets, with the expansion of creating an international footprint within India, the Prime Minister's dream of democratizing civil aviation has now become a reality as civil aviation expands its reach. On the one hand, from our metros to our tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and on the other hand, across the 7 seas to multiple continents across the world. And therefore, suffice to say that it's time to seize the skies, and I must congratulate the team at Indigo and wish them all the very best in the days to come.
So, in the engine part, there are still an element of doubt that
I'm sorry?
Engine part, sir. The recent history with the Pratt and Whitney. So the experts suggest that the order size might be very massive one, but the engine selection and then the deliveries, that is still that has to be looked upon. Your take on this?
As I mentioned to you before, that this is not the first order by this.
So that was the press conference being addressed by Minister of Civil Aviation Jyotiraditya Scindia, wherein he talked of Indigo, India's largest airline, placing an order of 500 A320 family aircraft, and this in fact has set the record for the biggest single purchase agreement in the history of civil aviation. He also talked of the prospects in the near future that will be aiming at strengthening the aviation sector. Let's get to other updates that we are following. British lawmakers on Monday voted to approve a report that recommended sanctioning former Prime Minister Boris Johnson for deliberately misleading Parliament over rule-breaking parties held during the COVID pandemic. Lawmakers in the House of Commons voted by 354 to 7 to endorse the Privileges Committee's report, which concluded that the former leader should have his parliamentary pass revoked, and had he not already quit, it would have recommended a 90-day suspension from Parliament. Johnson abruptly resigned from Parliament 10 days ago after seeing an advanced copy of the report, calling the inquiry a witch hunt. In his nightly address, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine said that Ukrainian forces had lost no positions in their counter-offensive against Russian troops on Monday, while enemy forces had sustained only losses. He added that our forces are moving forward, they are defending positions or resisting assaults and intensified attacks from the occupiers. Zelensky further said that overall the situation is one of pressure from us, which paves the way for our flag.
In some sectors, our forces are moving forward. In others, they are defending position or resisting assaults and intensified attack from the occupiers. We have no lost position, only liberated ones. They only have losses. Overall, the situation is one of pressure from us, which paves the way for our flag. Blue and yellow color will be present throughout our south and east. There are no fortification or reserves in the evil state that can stop Ukraine, because we are on our land, and that gives us the greatest strength.
Meanwhile, Deputy Minister for Strategic Industries of Ukraine, Sergei Boyev, said that Ukraine is in negotiations with Western arms manufacturers to boost production of weapons, including drones, at the Paris Air Show on Monday. He added that it could also sign contracts in the coming months. Boyev was courting drone makers in particular, ranging from major international defense firms to small suppliers. Negotiations on producing drones could take longer, but Boyev said that production in Ukraine could be an effective way to capitalize on the country's existing drone expertise and create jobs in western and central Ukraine. He also said that Kyiv was in talks with manufacturers from Germany, Italy, France and Eastern Europe about them producing weapons in Ukraine itself. Kyiv said that it is expanding its drone program for both reconnaissance and attacking enemy targets over an increasing range. Ukraine has received support from countries such as the United States, Germany and Britain.
We are already working with leading international defense companies on setting up localizing production of weapons in Ukraine, and the principal agreements have been already achieved on between our nation, Ukraine, and the management of those companies. So we think we'll have this weapon manufactured already in Ukraine. We think like drone could essentially follow that route.
Meanwhile, sirens were heard wailing in Ukraine's capital this morning as Russia launched a widespread overnight air attack targeting multiple cities from east to west. According to head of the Kyiv military administration, about 20 targets were identified and destroyed in the airspace around Kyiv. Critical infrastructure in Lviv and the Zaporizhzhia region was also targeted during overnight attack, according to their respective military administrations. However, no casualties were reported so far. Ugandan authorities said on Monday that 20 people had been detained for questioning about their possible role in the massacre of 42 people, mostly students, on Friday by the Islamist group Allied Democratic Forces. Those detained, police said, included the school's head teacher. They torched one dormitory that housed boys and entered another where girls resided and began cutting victims using machetes. Also, the student victims, including a 12-year-old girl in her first year of secondary school education. According to police, 17 bodies recovered were burnt beyond recognition, and DNA tests are being used to identify the bodies, police said. ADF was founded in Uganda in the 1990s. For years, the insurgents battled against the government of President Yoweri Museveni from their base in Rwenzori Mountains, which straddle Uganda's border with Congo. The world's first international treaty to protect the high seas was adopted on Monday at the United Nations, creating a landmark environmental accord designed to protect remote ecosystems vital to humanity. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres hailed as a historic achievement the treaty that will establish a legal framework to extend swaths of environmental protections to international waters, which makes up to more than 60% of the world's oceans. A key tool in the treaty will be the ability to create protected marine areas in international waters. Currently, only about 1% of the high seas are protected by any sort of conservation measures. The treaty is seen as crucial to countries protecting 30% of the world's oceans and lands by 2030, as agreed by world governments in a separate historic accord reached in Montreal in December. A submarine on the tourism expedition to explore the wreckage of the Titanic went missing off the coast of southeastern Canada, according to the private company that operates the vessel. OceanGate Expeditions said in a brief statement that it was mobilizing all options to rescue those on board the vessel. The expeditions, which cost $250,000 per person, starts in St. John's, Newfoundland, before heading out approximately 640 kilometers into the Atlantic to the wreckage site, according to the company's website. British billionaire Hamish Harding is among the passengers of the missing submarine. Harding himself had posted on Facebook that he would be aboard the submarine. There have been no further posts from him. The expedition headed out to sea on Friday, and the first dive was set for Sunday morning, according to Harding's post. Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman were also on board, their family said in a statement. US and Canadian ships and planes started the search for missing vessels on Monday for the missing OceanGate Expeditions submersible that went missing more than a day earlier off the coast of southeastern Canada while taking tourists to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. The US Coast Guard said there was one pilot and 4 passengers on board and that the vessel had the capacity to be submerged for 96 hours, but it was unclear whether it was still underwater or had surfaced and was unable to communicate.
We were notified by the operator of the submersible vessel that it was overdue, and it had 5 persons on board the submersible. So we're working very closely at this point to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to locate the submersible and rescue those on board. The location of the search is approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod, in a water depth of roughly 13,000 feet. It is a remote area, and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area, but we are deploying all available assets to make sure that we can locate the craft and rescue the people on board.
Getting you sports updates now. England and Australia displayed a nail-biting day 4 of the first Ashes Test match at Edgbaston. Both the teams enjoyed their own share of success and set the match on a knife edge ahead of the all-important day 5. While England scalped 3 Aussie wickets, Australia marched into the chase with a decent run rate of over 3.5 and over. Pat Cummins' side ended the day on 107 for 3, needing 174 more to win the match. That's it in this edition of the news. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.